When we think of Scottish exports, the first thing that comes to mind to most people is whisky. So you would imagine that the British government would attempt to protect this important export where possible. Well, no. Boris Johnson's government has been accused of conducting a quote-unquote stitch-up. What happened? Well, they invited MPs to a critical meeting to discuss oppressive US whisky tariffs. Well, they invited them 2 hours after the meeting had actually started. The SNP have attacked the Tory government over what they called a secretive meeting and demanded that English ministers stop playing what they called childish games. Now, International Trade Secretary Liz Truss had invited MPs to talks on Thursday, which were supposed to be an update on US tariffs on EU and UK products. But when did the invite arrive for the MPs? 6:30 p.m, when the actual meeting to discuss the issue started at 4:30 p.m. Last October, the Trump administration imposed 25% tariffs on Scottish whisky and other goods following a row over EU subsidies for airplane manufacturer Airbus. Recently, it seems that the US president is willing to drop extra charges on, for example, shortbread and other products that come from Scotland, but tariffs on malt whisky and Scotch whisky liqueurs will remain in place, which is having a damaging effect on Scottish industry. These tariffs, for example, have cost the Scottish whisky sector around £200 million, and exports to the US crashed by almost a third since these tariffs were first imposed. Brendan O'Hara, who is the chair of the Westminster's All-Party Parliamentary Group on Scotch whisky, lashed out at Liz Truss over the missed meeting. He said, and I quote, "At a time when elected MPs should be advocating on behalf of the businesses we represent, we have instead been completely shut out in a Tory stitch-up. How can the industry take the UK government seriously when such important meetings are a botch job?" He continued, "The threat of continued US imposed tariffs is utterly devastating to the Scotch whisky industry. When the industry needs certainty, the message from Whitehall could not be more detached from reality." Mr. O'Hara finally said, "Flying visits to Scotland by Tory ministers mean absolutely nothing when inaction on whisky tariffs have already cost the economy £200 million. It's time for Westminster to wake up to reality, cut the childish games and deliver for Scotland's whisky sector." I have said before how the British government, but in particular this Tory government, shows utter contempt for the Scottish people. They insult and ignore questions and requests from SNP members of Parliament Westminster, which is an affront to the people who voted for those parliamentarians. Let me be clear, when a government minister insults a member of Parliament or ignores their question or lambasts the actual question, they are insulting the voters. These antics are becoming more and more difficult for the Scottish Tories to defend, and in many cases they don't even bother defending them. This is the latest in a series of slaps the Scottish people have received in the face from this government, and I think it will just encourage more to rally to the side of independence. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. Why not become a Patreon and enjoy access to our Discord server where we share news, chat, and have some fun? If you become a patron, you can also make video suggestions on topics that are important to you. Check it out via the link in the description.